Kyler Staley with us from thehoosier.com to break it down, man. I know it's not really the opening day because I keep saying that because I feel I want to say it's opening day, but Tuesday was really opening day, and it's like, but it's not really opening day. But here's the thing: when you're in the play-in game, you're not in the tournament. But if you win that game, it's a tournament win.
Yeah. Well, I guess you look at it as the first 4 games were the appetizer, and now today we're at the main course. Now it's the greatest day in sports. I'll argue that till the day I die. So I mean, it beats Christmas out of the water. It's the greatest day of the world. So I'm excited. It's just an awesome day full of nothing but basketball.
Well, first of all, there's no lot of that, and just to be in front of 4 TVs would be great at once. But when those games are all going, it is like Christmas magic, man. It's like lights tinkling and just snow falling and crystals.
Did you say lights tinkling? Twinkling.
It's like there's just nothing better.
Nothing better. I think an underrated part of March Madness is looking up in the right corner and seeing the scores of the other games and then just switching over to them. I think that's the best one. Yes, 4 TVs would be great. Hopefully I can get my setup like that today. But you just seeing the scores and just keeping track of all of them. I mean, doesn't get any better than that.
It's my favorite. These are my favorite 2 days, and it's even better that tomorrow. This happened last year too, I believe. Tomorrow, Friday is also St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
So you get the combination of college basketball, St. Patrick's Day. I have the day off, so it's going to be fantastic.
I have the day off.
I don't know. I might be coming up with a cold. I might have to take a sick day.
It would be an interesting study to see if one of these 2 days is the most called out for work. Like the most.
There's no other combination like that. St. Patrick's Day and an opening day of the NCAA tournament. That is freaking. You want to talk about madness? March Madness. That is madness. That is crazy. There's already people. They already have enough reason to drink. They're already out there. Now you want to throw in St. Patrick's Day on top of this? Now you're bringing out people who don't give a crap rat's butt about basketball. 3 times as many that do, which are a lot, and you're throwing them into the fray now.
Yeah, especially in the state of Indiana. It's just like pouring oil on a gas fire at that point.
Yeah, maybe it's fortunate that I'm not going to be in Indiana at this date, but we'll be in New York, where Indiana will be taking on Kent State tomorrow. We'll get to that in a minute. But since things get going today, what are some of any favorite matchups that you looked ahead at today?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of those 8 and 9 matchups this year. When they were announcing those, those are just some interesting, matchups. I mean, I looked today at the schedule. I didn't know what time the teams played today, and right off the bat, we've got I believe it's Auburn and Iowa. I think that's who we start off with, or no, West Virginia and Maryland. I think that's what it is. But I mean, those 2 games alone, I think that's just interesting because you don't see those types of games. You don't see, Big 12, Big 10 matchups. You don't see anything like that. It's a rarity. So it's just always fun just seeing the different matchups, that can take place, especially when you look into the round of 32, the possibilities of, certain teams meeting up and everything. So at the end of the day, I think every matchup in the NCAA tournament's interesting to a point just because you don't see them all that often.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking, John and I, in the first segment about that the Maryland, West Virginia, and I'm going to be honest with Jim right here. I hope the Big 12 falls flat on its face so I can make fun of you for propping up the Big 12 all season long. But
hey man, they are what they are. They were good.
They were good. They'll probably end up being solid. But I just had to throw in that jab. But I think that the West Virginia Maryland game is interesting because Maryland doesn't play well outside of the Xfinity Center, and then the Iowa Auburn game because. Look, I've mentioned this 8,000 times. but Fran McCaffrey, in 416 years of coaching, has never made the Sweet 16. They were playing the hottest basketball of any team last season, as John brought up, and they got beat in the first round by Richmond. So can they kind of overcome some of those demons? I think the biggest issue so the two issues with those two Big Ten teams is Maryland doesn't play well away from home. Iowa can't defend a lick. So if their shots aren't falling, they could be a one and done.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that, especially when you look at how West Virginia's played this year. Maybe the record's not the greatest, 19-14, but they've been pretty tough. They've lost some really close games this year, and they've really clawed the entire season to make the NCAA tournament. They're a sneaky team that could go on a run this year if teams aren't careful. I can see them really, if they get past Maryland, I can see them really giving Alabama fits in the second round. And then you made a good point, Dustin, about Iowa. It's all about them, hitting their shots at the end of the day. Auburn, obviously, in the SEC, they're going to have a lot more athleticism coming into that. So Big Ten teams usually don't do well with high athletic teams. So we'll just see how that kind of shapes out. But like I said, those 8-9 matchups, I don't think you can get a better matchups out of those four.
No, man, I'm looking excited or forward to it. I'm excited but it just seems like it doesn't even matter a lot most of the time what the seeds are. The games are good, with the exception of a lot of times the 16-1 games with good reason are not going to be good. But it's not always the case. But it doesn't matter. It's like, man, these games are crazy. These teams have one shot. Look at St. Peter's last year, the run they went on. Who's the team that's going to go on the St. Peter's run? Last year it was St. Peter's. Before that it was Loyola Chicago and Sister Jean. So there's always something. There's always the darling of the NCAA, and it's like, but you can't pick it, because if you could pick it, you're pouring the magic into a bottle, and we don't have that foresight. I wish I did, or I'd be betting on it in Vegas. I promise you. But there's always a story and a storyline. Who's going to be that storyline, and seeing that develop is going to be fun.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's the best part, especially when you get to the round of 32 and you see some in-state schools go off against each other that are in different conferences. That's always been my favorite throughout the years, especially when you get to the state of Indiana and you see like a Butler or Ball State or something like that, Purdue and Indiana State, something like that, where you see those schools play against each other that don't often play against each other. I look at the Texas and Texas A&M potential matchup in the second round in the Midwest region. I think that'll be a really good game if we get to that point. But, storylines is what makes the NCAA tournament great. I know Indiana, if you look at their region, there's a lot of potential storylines there if they advance further. So that's what makes the NCAA tournament great, in my opinion.
I mean, we talked about this earlier, too, with Matt Taylor. You don't want your team to be on the upset end usually, right? Like Indiana in this case. We love upsets, but in this case, Indiana's the 4 seed, Kent State's the 13th seed. What are some things, Kyler, that you think Indiana needs to do in order to win this game? Because it looks to me like, we talked with Michael Lewis. He said they're not a great shooting team. They can light it up. But you look through some of the games they've played this season. They played Houston tough. That game was I think it was a 49-46 or 49-44 final. So they're perfectly fine with dragging you into a phone booth, knocking you around, playing physical, playing good defense. To me, Indiana's been inconsistent on the shot making. So to me, I think you got to play really good defense against this Kent State team. What are you seeing with this matchup? What are the players, coaches talking about? It's going to be key for this one.
Yeah, you made some good points there. I agree with pretty much all of what you said. Kent State's coming in. They're a battle-tested team. They play in the MAC. One of the toughest mid-majors out there. I always love me some action, as a lot of people say. So they come in. They play some tough road games. This season, like you mentioned, Gonzaga, Houston, College of Charleston was also a tough game that they all lost. But they're a team. Indiana's seen teams like this throughout the season. They've seen smaller teams that love to shoot the ball. Penn State, Kent State's pretty much the mid-major version of Kent State or Penn State. They're a team that's going to light it up. They're not extremely efficient from three, but any team can get hot, and if they get hot, Indiana's going to really struggle. It's important for Indiana's defense. You got to make these players beat you off the dribble. You got to make them try to make plays at the lane where, Trace Jackson Davis, Malik Renew, those guys can, contest some shots. They're a versatile team. Their biggest strength from what I've seen on a lot of scouting reports is they love to cause turnovers. They love to, they average, around 9 steals a game. I believe I saw a stat earlier that was they force 16 turnovers a game. So you got to protect the ball if you're Indiana. You look at the offensive end, Trace Jackson Davis. I think he's going to be Trace Jackson Davis. I don't think they're going to disrupt him a lot. They're probably going to throw, 2 or 3 guys at him, but Trace will get his. He'll go on runs and on his own accord. I look at Jalen Hood-Schifino. Man, he's had a great season, but a lot of games where he doesn't show up. A lot of games, and you look at the Penn State game for an example, the shots weren't falling, and if the shots aren't falling, he's going to continue to shoot until he gets some shots to fall. He's got to come in. He's got to come in locked in on the offensive end, and then obviously you need that third guy. You need a Miller Cobb. You need Trey Galloway, Malik Renew, Tamar Bates. You need one of those guys to step up in order for Indiana to make a deep run. But Indiana's little mini tournament with Kent State. Then you got the potential matchup between Drake and Miami. It's a tough one. I would say it's one of the more tougher little areas in the NCAA tournament when you look at it for all teams. Indiana's got to play through their strengths. They got to play the Trace Jackson Davis. They got to realize, especially in this game, that they have the size advantage. Hopefully their shots are falling. They limit the turnovers. Indiana has struggled, taking care of the ball in a lot of games this year. So take care of the ball, play defense, make those guys beat you off the dribble. I think Indiana would have a good shot at winning this game.
And one of the things, too, you just mentioned, you think Trace Jackson Davis is going to have, be himself in this game. And I don't disagree with that. I doubt Kent State has anybody that can really contain him. But to that point, is this kind of a thing where you think Kent State's going to say, you know what, we're content with letting Trace Jackson Davis get his. We can't let them get perimeter shooting going. We can't let their other guys get involved in this game. They might be perfectly fine letting TJD get 30 points if they can shut down the perimeter and keep those other guys at bay.
Yeah. I mean, that could be a perfect way that they could look at this game. I would expect, I've seen, teams kind of go with that approach throughout the season. Facing against Indiana, I would expect them to throw some double, triple teams at Trace early on in the game. And then just how the game kind of, adjusts. Maybe Kent State will make some adjustments throughout. A big thing, obviously, you don't want to get Jalen Hood-Schifino going, because if him and Trace are going, it's going to be problems for Indiana. But like I said, it comes down to that third guy. If that's going to be the case, where they're going to let Trace get his and they're going to shut down Jalen Hood-Schifino, it comes down to Trey Galloway, Miller Kopp, Trace Thompson, Malik Renew, Tamar Bates. Those 5 really. Which one of those guys is going to step up? You hope that Tamar Bates is going to build some consistency off of his Penn State performance, because, I mean, honestly, his play this year has been mostly disappointing in a way. So, you would expect him. He's got to hit some shots. He's got to hit some shots from behind the arc for Indiana to have a chance here. But yeah, I could totally see Kent State going with that approach. I just think you'll see what they adjust, once you get to halftime and just how the game flow is going.
Yeah, I'm sitting here thinking the key to Indiana is, this is Trace Jackson Davis's last go round. But it's also Jalen Hood-Schifino's last go-round, because we don't expect him to be back. And so how will this team come out? How are they going to play? What's the mindset that they're going to bring? Because we've seen them play in games where they were just destroyed people. And then we've seen them where they didn't do that. But you would certainly think that there's no way that mindset does not travel with them in this situation.
Yeah, at the end of the day, this is the NCAA tournament. You lose, you're out. Your season's over with. You hope the seniors realize that. Trace Jackson Davis is looking at it that way. You hope that Race Thompson, Miller Kopp are looking at it that way, and especially if Jalen Hood-Schifino already has his mind made up that he's going to be leaving after the season. This is it for Indiana. They built a good team this year. This team, was projected to have a lot of success. They've got the team. If they're all clicking and they're all on the same page, they've got the team to make a run in this NCAA tournament. I have no doubts about that. It's just all about them believing, having that mindset. It starts on the defensive end for Indiana, and then who knows what happens after that. Hopefully shots are hitting, but at the end of the day, they got to come out with some effort. They got to come out with some energy. They can't just roll over when things get tough. Not saying Indiana's done that a whole lot this year, but especially in the NCAA tournament, you can't afford that to happen. So you hope all your older guys are viewing that as this is a very desperate game, and this is a game that they must win. They're not taking it lightly.